I'm the music guy, CJ Plain. This is the Noise Report. You know what we do here? We laugh, we have a good time, and we interview cool and interesting people, or pretty much anyone that I can con into coming on this mess that I call a podcast. Today, over there, somewhere on your screen, is this gentleman over here. He is an amazing artist that I discovered on YouTube while scrolling around, looking up other stuff and come across his video. And then I found his record. And um, my year-end list came out. He was at number 17, and his name is Pepper Brooks. And he's going to introduce himself and tell you who he is.
Hey everybody, how's it going? Pepper here. Singer-songwriter, currently living just south of Nashville, Tennessee. Just released that album that you picked to be on your list, which so I appreciate that. Which is kind of an honor for myself because it hadn't really been out that long, and it still got placed on your list, which is really kind of cool. Um, Maybe when album two comes out next year, a little bit earlier, I'll have maybe get a little bit higher placement on that list. I don't know, we'll see.
Yeah,
Had some really interesting things come out, this year. Multi-award winning artist this year. Won Single of the Year with ISSA with America I Miss You. WSA recognized Old Fashioned Therapy as Best Traditional Country Song. Just
yeah,
recently won Best Christmas Country Song from the Holiday Film and Music Awards for Jingling My Bells. And then Elite Music Awards decided just the last day of the year to recognize me as the Musician of the Year. So it's been quite a snowball of things happening since I moved up here in the last year or so. So it's been great. Loving the journey, loving the ride, and just looking forward to 2025 and making more magic happen.
nice. Yeah, the lists are funny. I try to be as objective as possible, but sometimes the list is affected by, like if an artist puts out a CD in March as opposed to
December,
the
like
end of
me.
November, you don't
Yeah,
get as much time to listen to it, so you
correct.
don't really appreciate it. And I'm going to be honest, as I've listened to your record more and more, had I had more time with it, it probably would have been a lot higher because I'm listening to it now.
Appreciate that.
And there's a few things on the list like, yeah, I probably would have put this higher than that. Or I would have put it higher than this. Um, and realistically, had I probably had another month or two with it, you probably would have been closer to 9 or 10, you know.
Sweet. Hey, top 10's
So,
great.
um, so speaking of the record, it's a self-titled record. Um,
Correct. It was actually going to be titled Everything, but I had actually released the single Everything. And, still learning this business a little bit, didn't realize that once you release a song as a single with a title, you can't then go back and release an album which includes that same song with the same title. The powers that be with all distribution does not allow that. It's apparently some form of like double down copyright infringement. Even though it's my own stuff, they won't let you use the same title twice on a
oh,
release. Yeah, it's one of those things. I tried to go around it, in a different way, and I was like, it's okay. So the album cover still shows everything as like what was going to be the original release, but I had to release it as a self-titled album, which is okay, which most artists do anyway. Their first album out
yeah,
anyway. So
I was completely unaware of that. I mean, I've been in some form or capacity, I've been doing this for 37 years and I was unaware of that. So,
yeah. So a learning curve for me. So like the next album, I kind of got a title in mind for my next album, which I've already got 10 of the 14 songs of that album done already. They're ready to go. Probably going to drop a couple of those out this year as a release, as a single, and then do a whole album again. Probably, hopefully around August when my tour kicks off. We're trying to put a tour together for late summer, early fall. About a 2 month little tour we're going to go on, probably East Coast. So that'll be fun if we can get that worked out. So there's
nice.
a lot of logistics involved in that, especially when you're doing independent. It's a little bit
Yeah,
harder.
it is. It is not like the old days when you could, just kind of go out and do shows. And now there's so much involved with, you know, making sure you're not like stepping on the toes of venues within a certain area and
Oh yeah, for sure.
A lot of venues are like, when they book you now, they're like, okay, you can't play another show within 50 miles, uh, within 3 days or whatever. And
Right.
I mean, there's all these little things that never existed back in the day
Yeah,
because,
we're trying to keep this tour kind of low key small. Like we're gonna do some clubs, some bar areas. We're gonna probably stay out of the really bigger venues that have like I'm gonna say like 2,500 or more capacity. We have a couple that on the list right now that are going to probably be around that 1,000 mark, and one that's around 2,000 seat capacity. And obviously we're hoping we sell those out, but at the same time, we're going to try to keep it small. Do a few more shows in the 45 days to 60 days. The plan
Mhm.
originally was to do 30 shows in 45 days, so a very short tour, but a lot of stuff
Yeah.
going on in that 45 days. And now we're thinking like maybe 40 shows in 60 days because we've got some other places that don't want to jump on the bandwagon. So at the end, I always
Right.
make this joke. People make that don't know the business don't understand that it's called the music business, and
Yeah.
music's a small commodity of it. It's a business first and foremost. And a
Hmm.
lot of the reason a lot of people don't actually make it in this business is because they don't have a business mindset. They go in
Yes.
there thinking that, oh, I'm a great singer, I'm a great musician, and my talent's going to take me all the way. And like it might get you some head nods, but if you don't put your business hat on and start thinking about how to make money, then you probably won't be a superstar. So it's
Oh, dude, you're talking to somebody who, uh, in 1991, I was a bass player for a band called Psychotic Therapy. We had a record deal on the table with Atlantic Records. They said, we want to test you out, see what audiences think. We're going to put you on this tour for 2 weeks through the South. You're going to be opening for this new band. They got a major record coming out. They're going to blow up and be huge. You're the opening band. The band was Pantera. So we spent 2 weeks right before Cowboys from Hell came out. Kentucky, Tennessee, Louisiana, Mississippi.
yeah.
5 guys, 15 passenger van, sleeping in Walmart parking lots, making enough money to split a Happy Meal between the five of us. And by the 10th day, we pulled over 2 o'clock in the morning. We pulled over on the side of the road in Minden, Louisiana. And we all got out of the van and we debated for about 8 minutes. Were we going home or were we going to jail? Because we were done. We were like, this is bullshit.
Yeah.
Where's where's the parties? Where's the women?
Yeah.
Where's all the things that we saw in the videos, man? Like
Yeah.
this is like we're playing at home in our small town, putting on our own shows. We're making
And
like
make
300 bucks a night
yeah,
playing
making
beer
more money at
parties,
home.
and we're out on the road here and we're sleeping in parking lots, can barely afford a Happy Meal. And we were like, yeah,
Oh yeah.
this isn't it. Like we were done. So we went back home. We called Atlantic up and we're like, yeah, you know what? No, thank you. And we're fine. We'd rather play local bars and clubs and just not have the wear and tear. Um, so it's
Yeah.
very much a business and it's not for the faint of heart, man. Like
No,
it's
it's not. And the thing is, like, I spent 20 plus years in sales and marketing. I spent the
yeah,
last 20 years of my life before music, my music career being full time doing that. And, that was a hard job, stay on top of customers, stay on top of vendors, stuff like that. But I will
yeah,
honestly say, like, the last 2 years of my life, I've probably honestly worked harder than I've
yeah,
ever worked in my life. It is. I was talking to someone who's kind of new, getting in, they were asking for some advice and stuff. And I was like, well, there are no shortcuts. Like, and they're like, well, if there's a formula of how to do it, like I said, there is no formula. If there was a formula, like everyone would do that.
yeah,
But there is a formula. There are kind of like the basic steps, but like everyone that you see that makes it to like superstardom level, they all have a story of like quote unquote paying your dues. And what people don't realize is that paying your dues is really just sucking up the crap for how long it takes till you get there.
yeah,
And that crap for some people can be 1 or 2 years. That crap for people like Lainey Wilson can be 9 years playing on Broadway before anyone even knew who she
yeah,
was. So it's like you have to be willing to get down in the mud and stay and live there
yeah,
until your ticket comes along because you have to be in there doing it for some time before you even have a chance of even being noticed.
yeah.
Um, And what I learned, the only shortcut that I have found, and this is a business shortcut, not a music shortcut, but it works in all business. If you have a product you believe in and you're willing to invest in that product yourself, that makes it a whole lot easier for people to buy your product because you've invested yourself in that product. So, like for me now, my product is who I am. My product is my brand, my music. So obviously, I'm recording at Dark Horse. I'm recording it with the people, places that are, state of the art studios. They're not cheap
Mhm.
by no means.
Nope.
But when I was talking with Robin Crow at Dark Horse, he's like, well, "What do you want to do?" And I'm like, "I want to have music that will compete with what's on the radio." And he's like, "That's going to cost you some money." And I'm like, "How much?" And he tells me, I'm like, "Holy crap! Like that's a lot of money." And he's like, "Do you
Yeah.
think Tim McGraw and Faith Hill just sound that good naturally?" Like, they have these accompaniment instrument people that are playing. Like Tim McGraw doesn't play the guitar that well. He's a good guitar player, but he's not like an elite guitar
Right.
player. And what I learned in the studio was
Not
real
like
simple.
Vince Gill.
Every session musician that comes into a studio that I'm paying out of my pocket to be there, like they are masters at their craft.
Yeah.
They are not just a good guitar player. They are professional, elite level guitar players. And they even speak a language that most people don't even understand. It's completely all related to music and like timing and stuff like that. And I had to learn all this stuff too. And it just kind of blew my mind that, okay, like when you get to the pros, it's a different game. I mean,
Yeah.
it truly is. And if you want to be a pro, you have to present yourself as a pro in the
Yeah.
beginning. You can't just put out excuse my French, but a half-ass record that sounds okay. That people say, oh, there's a couple good songs on there. Like that's why I put so much into my stuff. Like I wanted every song that I put out, and even going forward, every song that I put out and release, I want it to be good enough that in my mind, and when people hear it, they say, "Oh, I can hear that on the radio tomorrow." I
Yeah.
could I could that being a number one in on the radio. And having a number one song isn't about having the best song. It's having a song that people can relate to and it becomes popular because of the
Yeah.
merit of the song, not because it's catchy. And now you do have your catchy songs like the
Yeah.
Macarena, that
Right.
just people get on a little trend and start doing dances with them. But there's so much business behind the music business that most
Yeah.
people that even move to Nashville chasing this dream, they just they don't grasp it. They don't even grasp the idea of how much business is associated with the music
Yeah.
business.
Yeah. It's funny that in 2007, I was living in Little Rock and I had a buddy who he owned a little club there. And he said, "You know any artists that want to play?" And I said, I know a few. So we booked a few. And I was in a store one day and I saw this CD and it was this artist named Haystack. And I said, Stack's got a following. Let's bring Stack over. And we called him up and he's like, "Well, I got these other three kids that want to come and, and whatnot." And he showed up and he had David Ray, he had Big Smo, and he had Jelly Roll. And they were all still just rappers at that point, you
Yeah.
know. And when I met Jelly, just the most real dude you ever met. Like just, you know, and I told everyone, I was like, this kid is gonna be huge one day. Like he's just he's too authentic, too real not
Yeah.
to. Just it's a matter of the right person at the right time seeing him. Now, I didn't think it was going to be in country. I thought it was going to be in hip hop.
Yeah.
But the Jelly you see today is the exact same Jelly I met
Oh
in
yeah.
2007 when he
I
was a
believe it.
complete nobody.
Yeah.
And I laugh now because I've been telling people for almost 20 years, that this kid was going to blow up. And oh, he's just some fat guy from Nashville. He ain't going to blow up. And, all my sons are 30 and 31. They're huge fans and they've been fans since his
Yeah.
first rap CD come out. And we laugh about it because we were there in the beginning, man. Like, so it's cool. And Cole Wetzel was another one. I interviewed Cole when he did his very first record, just like with like what you're doing. And I always knew Cole was going to blow up. Now I know a lot of people don't necessarily like Cole because Cole's kind of
A little
Cole.
edgy. A little
You
edgy.
know, but he was another one that I kind of had a feeling that um it's just somebody that love him or hate him, people are gonna find something about him that is gonna make him a big artist. So getting to your record, because there's songs on this record that I definitely wanna.
Let's talk about them. Let's go.
First one, I'm gonna let you know right now, you made me cry like a baby.
Let me guess the song.
Go ahead.
It's only one of two. It's either "Want to Stay" or "Second Place."
So I had to this day, I have a very love-hate relationship with my father.
Second
Um,
place.
yeah. Um, to the point where my father has said, I love you one time in my life. July 7th, 1978 was the night of his second wedding. Um, I remember the exact time, 7:48 at night, because it was his
Just
wedding
one of those
reception. I
moments.
fell asleep.
Yeah,
It was just that the only time that he's ever said it. And we've had such a difficult thing that when I had kids, my one mantra was always, I will never let my kids go to sleep without saying I love you because
yeah, they're gonna
I
hear
will
it.
not, I won't repeat the mistakes that my father made.
I feel you.
And when I heard that song, man, I was like, oh, damn it. Like, like there's certain songs. Leader of the
Yeah,
Band is one that makes me cry every time. Um, um,
I'll tell you
I
like
Love
that
You
song.
This Much. I Love You This
Yeah,
Much by Jimmy Wayne is the other one that just I cry like a baby every time I hear that damn song. And I try not to listen to it, but every once in a while I'll turn the radio on and it'll
yeah.
come on. And it's
Need to
just
get in the
like,
feel for a little bit.
yeah, and it's and like I got to interview Jimmy and I told him, I was like, dude, I love you for writing that song, but I hate you at the same time because that song, it's such a great song, but it's just like I can't listen to it without just totally breaking down. And
Yeah,
songs like this they're so classic, man. They're because they tell that story and people relate to them in that sense that
yeah,
good or bad, you know, it
yeah. I've gotten so much like again, it's positive feedback, but at the same time, it's because it's emotional. It's an emotional
yeah,
positive feedback from this song, and it's so weird because like me and my father were estranged, so I was like 30. I'm 48 now, and
okay.
he just recently passed away this past year, and we kind of developed a relationship over the last say 15, 20 years of kind of like we both enjoy golf, so we spend time playing golf together. But aside from golf, we didn't really have much in common. And my dad was actually a big racer, like back in his day. Like he raced dirt track cars, open circuit,
Mhm.
all kind of stuff. And so this song kind of was like a culmination of life and then just things that happened that just kind of it really evolved into itself really quickly. Um, I was actually playing a show one night back home in Bama, and I saw a father with his like probably 5 to 7 year old son, I'd say, and the dad was sitting at the bar having like hot wings and a beer, watching the race on TV, and he was giving the son dollars, to go play the video games. Like, go leave me alone, like
Yeah.
go do your thing, go play pool, go play the video games, and I'm gonna watch the race, have my wings of beer. And for some reason, like just it popped in my head about like I'm sure this child feels like he's in second place. And then the more I started thinking about it, I was like holy crap, like that kid's me also. Like
Yeah.
I was second place, and like so the literal opening line of the song where it says NASCAR rolls on the TV, he's just sitting there right next to me. It's
Yeah.
like I thought about that image of that dad and that son. Like here's this TV show on TV, or it could be football, or it could be anything that's distracting a father, and their
Yeah.
son's literally right there beside them, and like they're oblivious. And I'm not gonna lie, I hate to say it, like I'd done it some with my kids growing up too. Like I'd get diving into projects that I was working on and didn't want to be distracted, and my kids are just
Mhm.
wanting to have fun and play and be kids, and I'm like, nah, leave me alone. I got stuff to do, and that's every father's balance is how do I balance what I need to do with what I want to do, kind of thing. And
Yeah.
I just put a lot into it. And a friend of mine, I had about 75% of the song finished and just couldn't get it done. And I had a friend of mine sit in with me one day, help me finish writing the song. and she actually gave me a perspective, like an emotional perspective from it that I wasn't even thinking about, like the distance that it creates
Mhm.
in the relationship. And then the thing that she told me when we were sitting there writing, she goes, "It's kind of a sad song." She's like, "If you can figure out some way," which it took me a couple months to actually finish it, some way to like come back full circle to like your life, kind of do like you did. Like I made a point that I was going to spend time with my kids.
Yeah.
My dad didn't. So ending the song with the way the song ends on a positive note about like I'm going to break the cycle. I'm going
Yeah.
to break the pin. I'm gonna start new traditions. Like we're going to keep going round and round, but it's going to be for a positive thing versus a negative. So still one of my favorite songs to this day. I don't play it out much live because it makes me cry a little bit too sometimes. So,
Yeah, like so my dad's been a truck driver for 55 years. He's in his 55th year as a truck driver. And my mom and him divorced when I was 2. Dad got custody. We didn't own a home until I was almost 8 years old. And we lived in his truck,
wow.
basically. And we just traveled. My dad's an over the road driver to this day. And it was only even at 8 that the state started asking questions. Why is this
Yeah.
kid not in school? So I had to go to my grandpa's house to live while dad was gone most of the time. And all through my young years, teenage years, up until I was 15 when I left home, dad was there 2 to 3 days a month, maybe. And I was, finally he got remarried, and my relationship with my stepmother was even worse because she was one of them women who couldn't keep her hands to herself. Um, so, it was just it was a song that it really kind of like damn. I
Little gut punch.
yeah, I mean and it has that twist at the end, sort of like the Jimmy Wayne song does, where it comes back around to
Full
you
circle.
know
Yeah.
the cycle. So really amazing song, man. And
Thank you. Thank you.
um second
Interestingly
one,
enough, like that song, we're actually starting a promotional campaign with that song today.
awesome.
I'm going to be promoting 3 songs off the album in the next 3 months. One for January, one for February, one for March, and then probably at the end of March, I'm going to release a new single off the new album, and then we'll just keep going and keep putting stuff out. But yeah, it's such a good song, man. Everyone,
Yeah.
the reason I decided to promote it, and I think we're going to be looking at maybe even doing a music video for it relatively soon too. Trying to think of some elements of how I want to put that together, but Friday Night Lights kind of videos in there too, because there's
Yeah.
parts of my life in that song too about being a sports guy, and
Yeah.
mom telling me you're going to be a superstar one day, and
Yeah.
I make jokes with her all the time and say, hey, you were right about me being a superstar, just in the wrong sport.
Right.
It's like so,
Yeah,
but yeah, I love the song too. It's great. It's great.
I wanted to be a rock star growing up. And there was never a plan B for me. I was going to be a rock star. Well, what if it fails? I'm going to be a rock star. Well, what if it doesn't work out? There's no plan B. I'm going to be a rock star.
Yep.
And it eventually failed. I had kids, and I realized that I got to get a job. And I became a truck driver like my dad, until he tried
Wow.
to kill me.
Okay.
Now I have this wonderful scar in the middle of my forehead because a half-inch chain snapped on a flatbed and tried to crush my skull. Um, so I
Wow.
can't drive truck anymore because, Homeland Security says you suffered a brain injury, you could have a seizure at any time. You're not safe to drive a semi.
Yeah.
Here's your Class B license. You can go drive a school bus because the government says, yeah, you can't drive a semi truck with only you in it, but you're safe to drive a school bus with 80 children
Yeah.
in it.
Yeah. Yeah,
Because
you're not okay to drive pallets of furniture around, but we'll put you
yeah,
on a bus where you got 60 kids that you're in charge
yeah,
of.
and people were like, that doesn't make any sense. And I was like, it's the government. It never
Yeah.
makes sense. Like that's exactly what you expect from the government. Um, the second song, when I heard Midnight in Montgomery, that is probably my favorite Alan Jackson song. And when I saw the
Hey,
title on, I was like, did he do a cover of that? I was like, No, because that's a really like difficult song to cover. Like it's just one of them songs that has such a vibe to it.
Yeah, it's got that kind of eerie, cool
Yeah.
vibe. Yeah.
When I heard it, I was like almost like this version better because
Well,
you
thank you.
doing it, you doing it with just the guitar, just the acoustic guitar, it
Yeah,
really gives it its own,
it makes it a little darker.
it gives it its own life. Like
Yeah,
there's really something to be said when you discover an artist that is just sort of that solo artist just playing guitar. Like I can tell you how many times I've been somewhere and either a bar or sometimes I in one in a mall where this guy was just sitting there and he's just playing an acoustic guitar, just singing songs, singing songwriter songs. Uh,
yeah,
Steve Earle and uh, um, Tom Russell, a few different songs, a couple of Dave Elvin songs, and I initially tried to ignore him because we were in the mall doing something, but I could hear him performing, and he
yeah.
was so pure, so good that I told my girlfriend at the time, I was like, you know what, do what you need to do. I'm gonna be out here. And I just went out there and I just stood there watching him. And his voice, it's so crystal clear that, the guitar, just him and that guitar, that's all it was. There was no accompaniment, there was no backing tracks, no nothing. It was just very much like this, and it was just so great. And I love those moments of just clarity almost of
Yeah,
it's when real talent shows itself because there's no hiding the mistakes, there's no hiding the overdubs or the stuff you
yeah,
fix in the
that's true.
studio, man, like there's nothing to cover it up. There's no
There's
drum
there's
tracks, there's
there's
no
no
beats.
mixing or mastering. It's just the only mastering done in that is just making sure the volume levels are right.
Right. um so again, and faithfully too, you did use a little bit of instrumentation on faithfully, but again, another. And,
So
and I'll
that
be honest, I'm not a Journey fan. I'm really not I've heard Journeys for so long. Bob Seger and Journey are my dad's favorite two bands.
yeah,
To the point he will physically fist fight you over them. Bob Seger especially. Like I swear on the left hand of God, if you were to walk up to my father and say Bob Seger sucks, he will fist fight you in a parking lot over that. Like he just you don't ever say anything bad about Bob Seger in the presence of my dad.
it's so interesting
And
about the Journey song though. Like I had really no plans on recording that. I was actually had other song. I had 6 songs scheduled to be recorded at Dark Horse for my first studio album that I was working on, and Dave Hagen, my producer, he's like, we might have time for a 7th song. Is there a 7th song you want to do? And I was like, well, I don't really have a 7th song. I said, but there's one song that I cover when I play my shows a lot, and people love it, and I've been told I should record it. And he's like, what is it? And I said, it's Faithfully by Journey. He leans back, he goes, like, really? Like, you can sing Journey? He's like, you can sing Journey? And I'm like, yeah. I'm like, I do. It's kind of a more of a country version of it. And he's
yeah.
like, well, let me hear it. So I start playing it pretty much the way it is,
Yeah.
recorded minus the instrumentals. And Robin Crow walks up behind me. And I don't see him. I do the whole song. And Dave's like, he's just sitting there like with his mouth open. He's like, wow. He's like, dude, like, I didn't expect that from a country guy.
Right.
uh, and Robin puts his hand on my shoulder and he goes, are we recording that? And I said, I didn't plan on it. He goes, maybe I should change my tone and say, we need to record that.
Right.
This is Robin Crew, who owns Dark Horse. So I look at Dave and he's like, we can move something else to the back. So we put it in. And then the intro we were originally going to do was still guitar. My instrumentalist that day was Gideon
Mhm.
Klein, phenomenal instrumentalist, savant, anything on strings. He's amazing. And we had recorded it with him playing the intro like it is on piano, just on a steel guitar. So it sounded
Mhm.
exactly the same. And it sounded good. It still had that country vibe to it. And he looks at Dave. He goes, how much time do we have left? And Dave's like, wait a second, I want to try something. He's like, what do you want to try again? He's like, I've got my fiddle in the car. He's like, oh, okay, go grab it. So he comes in and like, so everything's recorded other than like, true track vocals. So everyone's like on a break, basically listening to Gideon just play a solo of the intro as it's being overdubbed into the room with all the other
Mhm.
sounds. And the second he leads into the intro with it, like you could literally hear the entire room gasp. I mean, it's like
Wow.
that fiddle intro, just like it just grabs your soul immediately. It's like, hey,
Yeah.
listen to this. So it was really interesting, like getting the mechanical license for it. I didn't even know when I recorded it. I'm the only person to ever officially do a recorded cover of that song, an official cover, which is kind of an honor in itself, considering how much that song has meant to so many people.
Yeah.
But then, I had the pleasure of getting an email from the songwriter, basically saying that he never thought that a country version of that song would even sound good.
Right.
But then he was like, Jonathan Kane, messaged me on Instagram and basically said,
Yeah.
because they get to hear it first. Songwriters, I learned this
Yeah.
all about this mechanic stuff. If you cover someone's song before it's
Yeah.
released, as they're getting like the rights to release a song, the songwriter gets to hear it, and they can say no. Like they could
Right.
they could put a cease and desist on the song. The only thing legally they have to do is they legally have to reimburse you for any money you've spent to
Right.
produce. Which for someone like Jonathan Kane, a couple grand's nothing. It's like, but so I get an email or a message on Instagram. He's like, no, he's like, just heard your country version of our song faithfully. And he said, never thought it would sound good as a country song. He's like, but hats off to you, man. He's like, it sounds like it should have been recorded that way from the beginning. And I was like,
Mhm.
holy crap, like this is the guy who wrote it. Like,
Yeah.
it's like, and I'm like, and everyone that hears it loves it, and that's probably one of my favorite cover songs to do. Although I've been doing some other stuff too here recently. And I think I'm going to keep that trend up with every album that I release. I think I'm going to do one, maybe two, my version of songs that I
Right.
love as a cover release because you never know. I mean, look what Luke Combs did with Fast Car. It's like
And that's the thing. Like there are I've said this to other people. There are artists that can cover songs and sound decent doing it. And then there are other artists that, whether it's because they connect with the material in a certain way or they just have a unique take on it, that really do a version of the song that is faithful to the original, no pun intended, um, but also gives it its own unique sound.
yeah. So it's
You
like a
know,
different song.
um, because I've heard cover songs and I love cover songs. I have a massive collection of cover songs. Okay, like the one thing that my friends will tell you about me, even though my music collection is very eclectic, as you can see by the wall. Um,
Yeah.
you know, the two things that I really love the most, I love soundtrack music and I love cover songs. So I have folders on my computer with tens of thousands of songs from each of those categories. And I've heard cover songs that I really love, and I've heard some that were just so horrific that um they should be burned in the fires of hell forever. Um, I love the band Nevermore, but they're a death metal band and they recorded a death metal version of The Sound of Silence. And it's horrific. It's just it literally destroys everything that song is about.
I
You
say
know,
that song specifically, the best version of that song I've heard is the one that Disturbed did. Like blew me away.
there's there's also a version by a German band called Atrophy that
I've
has a male
actually
and
heard that one.
female.
Yeah, I heard that one.
Um,
Yeah, it's good too.
yeah, that's also a very good version, but David did a really great job just on the
Hmm.
dynamics of the vocals. So I will agree that, Disturbed's version is really great. But Nevermore's is just, and I love Nevermore, you know.
So there's
But
a version they never recorded it this way, but you can find it on YouTube. I forget what it's something Hall Symphony is the symphony group. It's like strings
okay.
and all that playing.
Yeah.
But there's a live version of Disturbed with this symphony doing that
Right.
song. And like that version, like with the symphony
Yeah.
behind it, is like it's crescendo. It
Yeah.
is like the apex of how that's as good as that song will ever sound.
I mean, that's the way
you
it's
know,
designed, though. That's the thing. And again, as much as I love Nevermore, hearing Worrell just bellow and scream at the top of his lungs in double speed of singing that song is just like, no, that doesn't work at all. Like, I mean, it's just,
Well, I
it's
tell you
like
what,
Slayer recording a Kenny Rogers
if
song.
you're not busy tonight, that being said, I'm playing a show tonight, and I'm going to go Facebook Live sometime between 7 to 9 p.m. I've just recently started doing a kind of a it's kind of a country, but it's in a minor chord, which kind of has reminiscences of like Hallelujah. But I'm doing a version of "Sweet Child of Mine" by Guns N' Roses. That is
Nice.
another one of those where I'm taking it, kind of stripping it down, making it a little more raw, and making it a little more. I bring people in with it, like I make it more intimate,
Yeah.
like as opposed to being this upbeat, fast song that you getting you going. Like it
Yeah.
gets a little darker, but it's so good. People that hear it, I've literally gotten standing ovations from it because it's like when you can pay homage to
Yeah.
the original song and not take anything away from it, but then just add a different dynamic to it. People who love the song instantly become a fan because you've done something with it they never expected.
It's, music is so great because sometimes, and I love an artist that I love an artist that thinks outside the box. I love an artist that isn't scared to break boundaries, isn't scared to do something that people will automatically say that should never work. Um,
Yeah,
I had the honor a long time ago. I was in New York working with another friend, and we met Wrench, who is basically the brains behind Gangsta Grass.
yeah,
And Wrench was telling us, this was even before they recorded the first song, I got this new group I'm putting together, and this is what we're going to do. And we were looking at him like he was an alien because you're going to what? I'm going to do bluegrass and hip hop. No, bro. That won't work. You can't put bluegrass and hip hop together. And he said, why not? I was like, it's no. And he's like, dude, he goes, listen to me for a minute. And I said, okay. He goes, what is bluegrass? I said, well, it's mountain music. It's songs about
yeah,
gun runners and moonshiners and stuff like that. And he goes, and what is New York City hip hop about? And it dawned on me like, holy shit, both of them, it's basically gangster music on top of gangster music. And I was like, okay, I got to hear it. And then a couple months later, he sent me the first song, and I was like, wow, that is an unholy alliance that shouldn't work. But it's actually really, really good. And he won a damn Emmy for the Justified theme, you know?
yeah,
And I just, it's just like, I love when people can do that. Just really kind of take something, bluegrass especially. Bluegrass, it's kind of infamous for taking songs and turning them on their head. The bluegrass version of the Metallica songs, the bluegrass versions of
yeah,
Green Day songs. Um, and, bluegrass is a music that my grandfather, when I started living with him, he has this old AM clock radio in the kitchen. And he always listens to it. And it was always the station. And mostly it was little bits of music interspersed with, and now for the rest of the story, with Paul Harvey. But every Friday night, there was a show, the Renfro Valley Barn Dance. And it was this bluegrass thing from Renfro Valley, which is where the Bluegrass Hall of Fame is now.
yeah,
And we went down to Georgia to my uncle's house, and coming back, Grandpa was bound and determined. He was going to go through Kentucky and he was going to see Renfro Valley. He wanted to see. And I think, 13 at the time, hated country music, totally into metal. We pulled in, they were having this damn barn dance, and I sat in the car like this just for an hour. Like, oh, I can't believe I'm fucking having to sit here and listen to this shit kicker music.
yeah,
And finally I got bored and I went inside and I'm sitting in a chair against the wall watching this band, and it dawned on me. I watched the fiddle trade with the mandolin trade with the guitar, the fiddle come back in, and then the picker is going. And it dawned on me like this epiphany from heaven. Holy shit. This is just heavy metal for hillbillies. Like this is Van Halen basically played on country instruments.
Yeah.
And immediately after that, I was like, all right, I like bluegrass. And I've loved bluegrass ever since because my mentality about it changed. I didn't understand it, I guess. And it was only watching it and watching them basically do what Van Halen did, do what Judas Priest did,
Yeah.
with trading the leads and the melodies and the harmonies and all of that. And I never realized it because I always heard it on the radio from the mind point
Well, what's
of,
really interesting about music, and we had this conversation with a buddy of mine the other day, like there is, I believe that music in general, I believe this to my core, my spirit, that music in general is divine.
yeah,
Um, I say that because there are only 12 notes. There's only 12 notes on a scale. They
right,
go up in octaves, but and they go down in octaves, but there's only 12 notes. 12 is a
right,
perfect number to God, and it's like it's a number of completion. Music is complete. And I've always had this saying, which I haven't turned into a song yet, but it's where I say that music is what feelings sound like. So feelings don't have a sound, but our feelings are expressed through our music.
yeah,
And the thing that I love about music personally is I believe it's a divine gift that I have the ability to take a song that is not mine, that I didn't even write,
yeah,
and I can feel what the person in that story is going through.
yeah,
And if I cover it, that's why a lot of people tell me when I'm covering songs. Now I do a lot of stuff that's popular, and I do it as best to the original artist to keep it
right.
popular because that's what people want to hear. They want to you go play a 3 hour show somewhere. They don't want to hear 3 hours of just Pepper Brooks. They want to hear some
Right.
Randy Travis. They want to hear some Travis Tritt, and they want to hear some Luke Holmes and Luke Bryan and Eric Church.
Play
They
a
want to hear all
song
that
we
kind of
can
mix in
dance
there.
to.
Yeah, something we can dance to. They don't want to hear all this boring. And that's the thing about going to writers' rounds too. Like most of
Yeah,
what I write is what I refer to as like the traditional country stuff, like the Alan
yeah.
Jacksons, the Marty Stewart stuff like that. I like to have stuff with energy.
Old
Now I do have
fashioned
to,
therapy.
yeah, oh yeah, and that song, double helix meaning in that. Like I love old fashions too, and that's
Yeah,
I wanted to write a song about it, but not it just be another drinking song.
right,
So the whole aspect of the song was like the chorus is going to be about the drink, but the drink in response to I need this drink to reminisce on the way things used to be.
right.
So it's double play on words. And I just recently wrote a song that's not released yet, which I think is probably the best double helix song title of any song ever wrote, not just because it's mine, but it's called Alcohol of Fame. And
Nice.
it's I know, right?
That sounds like it that almost that title without even hearing it almost reminds me of something that Kevin Fowler would write because Kevin is infamous for writing like pound signed and in
Yeah.
different things of
The
you know
songwriting, like since moving here and working with other people and bringing other writers in to help me finish stuff, like it's given me a dynamic of like when I moved to Nashville a year and a half ago, I probably had about maybe 10, maybe a dozen songs that I would say were decent enough songs that I'd play for people. Probably
Mhm.
really just like 5 or 6 that I thought were really good, but 12 that I could just, sing my own
Right.
stuff. And since moving here in a year and a half, I think I've registered like close to 80 songs on BMI. And it's just like they just keep coming. Like the idea is like the more you do a craft, the sharper you get with it and the faster it flows. And like when I'm helping other people, like I've written some songs with people, it's not even my song, they're singing them out there, like co-writes people, and they're like, how does this just come to you so quick? It's like bam, bam, bam. Like it's a matter of doing it. The more you do it, the better you get, the sharper you get, the
Yeah.
faster it comes. But when I'm writing my own personal songs, I try to do a storyboard in my mind. I see it like, how is this playing out on the screen? And then I try to write about what I'm seeing, and like
Yes.
visualizing it. One of my current favorite songs right now, and every time I play it for a friend of mine because she's originally from Johnson City, I wrote this song called "God Made Tennessee," and it's really cool because like everyone that hears it is like, as soon as the right people hear this song, like that's going to be Tennessee's like state song. Like right now it's Rocky Top. It's like it's going to replace Rocky
Yeah.
Top because the chorus it says that I'm not going to sing it for you, but it says that they say the Lord made the world in just 6 days. He paused and reflected on everything that he made. Then on the eighth day, that's when I believe God made Tennessee. So it's like putting a stamp on Tennessee, being like, from a
Right.
Lord's perspective, like he made everything on that. After he took a day off, his next day back to work is when he made Tennessee. It's like
Nice.
because after moving here, man, like I fell in love with the state. Like there's just so
Yeah.
much beauty. I mean, it's a beautiful state. Alabama's beautiful. Alabama's called Alabama the Beautiful, but honestly and truly, like it doesn't handle Tennessee. Tennessee's way pretty.
Yeah.
But the writing the songs and relatable songs, stuff like that. And I do fun songs, but I want my songs to have energy, like
Yeah.
old fashioned therapy. I mean, it's just um, there's a story with every song, and as a songwriter, the more I'm getting into it, it's sad, but my biggest hang up, I think, as an artist is like now when I hear songs on the radio, like I'm picking them apart. Like
Yeah.
that doesn't make that song doesn't make any sense. It's like
Oh, you,
what story are you trying to tell there, bro? Like it's like, and
oh, dude, like, so about eight, about 9 months ago, I've done this for 37 years, but it's always been just a really expensive hobby. I've made a little bit of money here and there, dabbling, but I went through this brutal divorce 3 years ago. And after the divorce, I have sole custody of my youngest son now. And I just thought, I can't drive truck anymore. I want to do something with music and media. I was like, so, maybe I should get a degree. Maybe I should actually learn how to do this properly. So instead of making recordings in this monstrosity of a studio I built in a bedroom, I can go into an actual studio and do it correctly. Um, so I started going to this music production program, and I listen to music now completely different than I did then. Because now, when I listened to it before, I was a fan of music, but now I hear the way it's layered. I pay attention to the sequence of the songs. I pay attention to the wording of the songs. I listen for little things that I would have never noticed before. And
yep.
records that I used to love, I listen to now and I'm like, ooh.
Was I drunk when I listened to them? It's
Yeah,
like,
like missed it by that much on that one. Like that just it does not sound good at all. And I just never paid attention before because I wasn't trained to pay attention. Um,
yeah.
so again, it's very much like you said, the business aspect of it of, when you do it from one
Hmm.
side compared to the other side, there's a huge gap that people don't realize.
Yeah.
Um, it's not an easy job. It's not, you know, um, sort of the double-edged sword. The good thing is technology has made recording a song easier. The flip side on the bad side of that is recording has made or technology has made recording a song easier. And now you're hearing artists that really shouldn't be within 50 yards of a microphone. Um,
Yeah.
and
Well,
you're getting a
like
lot
that's
of
what I've
artists
tried
that,
to, you hit on a good point there. I've talked to several artists, and they don't, and I understand. Like, not everyone in this is as fortunate as I am that I've, been able to afford the things that I've been able to afford
Mhm.
musically. I made it a point to afford them, as opposed to spending, $200 a week eating out to dinner. I'd save my money in
Right.
studio time. What's important.
That's
Um,
right.
and the thing I look at is I don't mind making sacrifices for a few years and being music poor. That's what I call it, being music poor. Basically, I'm putting everything into music
Hmm.
because my end result is I know that on the backside of this, when that ticket's finally punched, it's going to pay off. I'm investing
Right.
in something that's going to pay off exponentially at the end. And if I don't invest in it, there's little chance that it will ever pay off.
Right.
So it's one of those things. I would rather pour everything I have into it for 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 years and be at the end of that road going, you know what, I did everything I could and didn't make it, than to be at
Yeah.
the end of that road, be at the end of that road and go, you know what, I could have done a whole lot more. Because
That's
the one thing you cannot get back in this life period is time. So I'm going to maximize what I have. And I've told people, I said, I understand if your budget's $500 to do a song, but you need to understand going into it that a $500 song, no matter who's producing it, no matter
the
who's recording it,
$500 song.
will never sound like a $5,000 song.
Yeah.
They don't understand that. And I said, it's, can you get to work in a Honda Civic? Absolutely. Can you get to work in a Ferrari? Absolutely. But one of those two songs is going to tell people a little bit about who's driving the car. One of those
Right.
cars is going to say something about who you are as a person, who you are as a, and not that people, but people do judge. And especially in the music industry, I've learned you have more critics than you have supporters, plain and
Mhm.
simple. So, like, if I give a CD to somebody at a label, I'm trying to pitch my song to them, and it doesn't sound as good as what they've already heard for the last 5 years.
Mhm.
The first 5 seconds, their ears are going to say nope, and it's gone.
Yeah.
They're not even
Yeah.
going to take time like you do sometimes as a independent to actually listen to the merit of the song and to hear what's
Yeah.
in the song. They're going to hear how it's produced and go like, "This is crap," and throw it away. Doesn't matter if it could be Amazing Grace written out. Like they're going to
Yeah.
say this song's produced horribly, so it's done immediately because their brains are only. I tell everybody they live at 40,000 feet
Yeah.
first class. They're only used to 40,000 feet first class. So if
Right.
they're presenting anything that's less than that, it doesn't even
Yeah.
get their attention. They're oblivious to it. And I
Yeah.
said, you have to be able to throw rocks up there where they're at to get their attention. So the only way to do that is to do what everybody else is just already doing is doing. So it's sad, but I mean it's one of those things where you do kind of have to pay to play, and
Yeah.
I'm
One of
talking to
the
someone right now actually about they're wanting to move here and chase the dream of music. And I was like, well, what's your goal? Like what's your end goal? Like what do you want? Do you want to be signed? And this lady, she's like, well, my main goal right now in music is just to perform at the Grand Ole Opry. I'm like, you can sing at the Grand Ole Opry, like it's not what it used to be. It's
yeah.
like, I mean, do you still
Yeah.
have to know somebody and pull a string or two to get on the stage? Sure, but you could probably play there a couple of songs on a Tuesday night when there's 500 people in the crowd.
Yeah. I mean,
Are you
yeah.
gonna are you gonna are you gonna play on the Grand Ole Opry sold out for an event? Maybe not.
Yeah.
But
I'm gonna say
if you're going,
they've let Post Malone play there. I mean, it's really not what it used to be. I
well, I mean,
mean,
the thing is, like I've had several friends of mine who are technically by level, they're below where I'm at, and they've played on the Opry stage.
yeah.
But there's times when people like myself can go play on that stage, but playing on the Grand Ole Opry doesn't make you a superstar. It used to,
Right.
like back when
Yeah.
Hank Williams Sr. was coming up, and Merle Haggard and Johnny. When you got to play in the 50s and 60s, you got to play on the Grand Ole
Yeah.
Opry. Like that was like your staple of saying you've made it to country music.
Right.
Like it was the big apple of country music. Like you get to get on
Right.
the Grand Ole Opry stage, like you're there. Like
Music
that's
Row.
the last step.
Yeah.
And now there's so much more involved with it because I hate social media. Like I don't want to say hate it, but I mean I don't think there's much
I,
good that comes out of it. Period. But if I have to be on it because if I have
yeah.
zero social media footprint, no label's going to look at me and say,
Yeah.
yeah, well, how many followers do you have? Like, I got four.
Yeah.
But they buy everything that I put out. Like
Yeah.
again, it's a business. So now these labels aren't going out looking to sign new artists. They're trying to find artists who are already pretty much doing it
Yeah.
themselves, and they're taking them over and saying, okay, they say, oh, you got a good product, we can make money off of you.
Yeah.
You've already got a 30, 40,000 fan base in your area. We can make money off of you, and like you're good enough that we feel like if we put you out there, like they were going to put you out with Pantera, we're going to put you out there and basically give you breadcrumbs for a year or two. And
Right.
if you happen to have a number one and go triple platinum, well, then you'll be a superstar. Then you'll make millions. But they're
Yeah.
they're going to take minimal risk because they have all the carbs at this
Yeah.
point. It's like
We we knew we were never going to make money because we were a death metal band. Um, like it was never about the money per se. It was more just we wanted the parties, we wanted that lifestyle that we saw on MTV. We wanted the lifestyle that we saw Metallica and
yeah,
Testament and Exodus.
sex, drugs, and
You
rock and
know,
roll, baby.
yeah.
It's like,
And it was kind of like a reality check of, wait a minute, where's the women? Where's the beer?
where's the
Where's
party?
anything, and even the Pantera guys were basically they were kind of slumming it on a beat up tour bus at that point. But, within 2 months after we came home, we went to the record store and here's Cowboys from Hell. And, it was this monster record. Everyone started listening to it. And, we were like, here, want some flyers? We got flyers when we were touring with them. And everyone was like,
Like, y'all, you
you
toured with
toured with
Pantera?
Pantera? And I was like, yeah, it sucked, bro. It was not nearly as glamorous as you think. Like,
Well, I will say this: when you talk about that, it's kind of funny. Like being up here, and I've had the opportunity to meet some people that I thought were superstars. Like
mhm,
in the music industry, and with the exception of a few, I won't mention any names, but like it's weird. Like when you meet these people that you in a way idolize or respect from a standpoint of what
yeah,
they've done, and you realize like you know certain people you hang out with them, you're like, you know what, like we couldn't be friends, like, and then like you have this, not that you have a bad taste in your mouth as that person is an art, but like you hang out with them and know that like I wouldn't invite you over to the house for a barbecue, like
yeah,
still love your music, but like we could
yeah,
never be friends. It's like I don't know, and there's a lot
yeah,
of people in the industry, they don't really have a choice, but they end up, people call them sellouts, and
yeah.
I've seen, I'm from Nashville, Alabama, so I grew up around, Jacksonville where Riley Green grew up, and Riley Green's done pretty well for himself for the
Yeah.
last decade,
Love
10 years.
Riley.
He's done really good. I still think he's a terrible songwriter. That's just my opinion, but he's got some good folks writing for him now and writing with him, so he's getting better. But he never had any plans on being where he's at. He didn't have a dream of being a country music singer. That wasn't like even on the table for him. Like he thought he was gonna be
Right.
working with his father-in-law, building houses and pouring driveways and just playing bars and gigs on the side. He only started
Yeah.
writing songs because he got tired of playing the same old cover songs. It's like I can write a song too, and he's had some things happen, fortunate things happen. He's had his family invest in him a little bit, which again you got to invest
Sure.
somewhere, and it's given him
I mean,
opportunities where he's taking advantage of. But people don't know this about Raleigh, but his first 2 years, dude, they had him over the coals, man. Like he was basically broke for the first two
yeah,
years, even though he was playing 180 shows a year. He was broke. I mean, he
yeah,
was in because he
I
didn't.
totally understand.
He jumped on this is a couple $1 million contract. Oh yeah, I'm a millionaire. Well, not yet.
No, you just owe the label $2 million until they've recouped their money.
Yeah, exactly. Like they're gonna pay you, but you're paying them back. And at the end of this, if you
Yeah,
don't pay them back, you owe them money. So it's like,
yeah.
uh,
And that's the one thing. Like I look back on it now and I laugh about it now, but I am so glad that we walked away from that contract because we would have Atlantic at that time signed about 100 bands similar to us and just buried them so that other bands like Prong, Pantera, Anthrax, so that they didn't have competition essentially.
yeah.
We were all in the same sound style circle of whatnot. So we think about it now, like we would have ended up making little money, probably a bunch of money doing shows, but no record sales or real serious merch.
Yeah,
And we would have owed Atlantic Records hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars
yeah,
that we would have worked minimum wage jobs probably to pay back. So I'm very happy with the end result of how
yeah.
I've evolved. Um, and sometimes an investment works out, sometimes it doesn't. You take Gary Allen. He had that guy out in California that owned a car dealership that him and his wife was willing to invest in Gary and pay for his first record. And I mean, obviously it paid off.
Yep.
Um, and sometimes it doesn't work out. I mean, it just is what it is. But I think true talent kind of always shows up most of the time. So um, yeah. So where do people find you, find the music, find I guess any
So
merch you might be
I
selling?
recently just established a website. So now it's just I have a domain. It's pepperbrooks.net. So just myname.net is easy to get to. That takes you there, and from there you can go to all my other links. Instagram,
Nice.
Facebook, YouTube, all that good stuff. And I do post probably as far as like my show locations where I'm playing. I post more on Facebook, probably anywhere. I'm in a process of shifting that to my website, where my show dates will be posted there versus like on a social media platform.
Mhm.
That way, people, because on my website it's set up where you can subscribe, like and become a subscriber. So as a subscriber, when I drop any new news on the website, you get an email saying, "Hey, these are the shows, monthly newsletters, stuff like that, and I'm trying to set it up like, again, like a business. So like if you was like, if it was a sales business, like you want to get a monthly newsletter, monthly sales book, whatever. So I'm going to start having a newsletter go out once a month that says where I'm playing for that month.
Nice.
And on my website there'll be like tour stops, like where I'm going to be at, when there's a tour going on and stuff like that. I'm still at this point just doing it independently because at the end of the day, and I always say this when it comes to music, because I don't play shows I used to play for $100. Like that's all about, at the end of the day, it's about making money. So like I always say, if it doesn't make dollars, it don't make sense.
Right.
So, a lot of places back in Bama where I used to play frequently for $100 a night, like I don't go play there no more. Not because I don't want to go play there, because they were great venues. It's just, it doesn't make any sense for me to drive 2.5 hours to make $100.
Yes.
And some of these places understand that, and they've ponied up, and they pay me more. They'll pay me $500-600 to come back and do a show for a couple hours, and because they like my music, and they actually are helping me, get to
Right.
where I want to get. So it's a transition, and I had a friend of mine here recently who was talking about moving here, had mentioned, well, I make $2,000 a week in Nashville. I'm like, no, not to start with. Like you might after a year,
Right.
if you're playing 5 nights a week on Broadway, you can make that kind of money. I'm like, but what's your goal? Like, do you want to just come up here and play shows, or do you want to be assigned a label, with an artist, an artist with a label? So I tell everybody it's all about steps. I'm actually starting to write a book, which is going to be part of my success in music too, I think, because the title of the book is called Shortcuts to Success. And in parentheses below it, it says I forget, but it's life, and I want to say it's like sales, but like it's in life. We'll say like life, liberty, and music.
Yeah.
But like it's the idea is to not tell someone they can take a shortcut, because actually the introduction starts out with saying, I must apologize for the title of this book. There are no shortcuts to success.
Right.
But what I consider a shortcut is if I can study someone who's done what I'm wanting to do and look at what
Yeah.
they've done and the road they've went down. If I know I can go to like step 3 of that road without having to cross the puddle and the hurdle and go right to the step 3, I can do that, whether it be financially
Right.
or from a logistics standpoint. So in a way that is kind of a shortcut. I'm taking their knowledge and gaining a few steps in
Yes.
this process. And that's kind of what I'm wanting to share with people, like what's worked for me, what hasn't worked for me, like the things that I've, the hurdles I've had to cross, the places where I've got, r- pulled over the coals,
Mm-hmm.
um, where I've allowed myself to be taken advantage of, where I've had opportunities. And by doing that, I feel like if nothing else, I can share people my journey in life and in business and in music also at the same time, of how to develop a little bit faster, things that work, things that don't work, where you should promote
Yeah.
yourself. If you're going to spend money promoting yourself, like, should you do it on your own? Should you give somebody who's a promoter to do it? And you have to kind of weigh that. If this is a promoter wanting to charge you $200 for a promotion for a month, and they have 100,000 followers, that might be beneficial to you.
Right.
If it's a promoter who's got 5 friends on Facebook and they're just starting out, want to charge you
Right.
$200, like they're not going to help you. Like
Right.
you're really doing them a favor by giving them business. And if you're okay with that, that's fine.
Right.
But I told this girl recently I was talking to, she's talking about this, people talking about this and this and that. And I said, people in this town will talk stuff all day. I said, I have learned to ask them to put it in writing. And she goes,
Absolutely.
well, that sounds rude. I'm like, no, it's not rude. It's business. And if they understand the business, they don't have a problem with putting it in writing because they're business mindset.
Yeah.
But if they have a problem with actually putting it on paper or in an email or something to
Right.
actually hold themselves accountable, I said, that's nobody you want to work with anyway,
Yep.
because they're not willing to be professional about it. And that's my mindset. It's been that way. I left my job, 20 plus years of sales in April of 21 to do music full time. And again, no plan B. Haven't thought about going back. And, although this last year, I quit a dozen times, but I got up and went back to work next morning, so it's like,
Right.
because it is frustrating, at times, but like, it's the thing I've always said is like, if you have a goal, if you have a vision of where you want to be, and that's what you focus on, and you put all your eggs in that basket, and you're concentrating on making that happen, It will happen. Will it happen tomorrow? Maybe. Will it happen eventually? Sure, because that's what you're working toward.
Right.
And I tell people, don't expect anyone to do for you what you can do yourself.
Yes.
If you can do it yourself, go out there and do it, and show them people you don't. Not that you don't want any help, but you don't need their help. I
Right.
said the people that all these label guys, these big music moguls that are out here signing people, when they see that you're willing to do the work, they become willing to help. They don't want to help people that don't want to help themselves.
That's
So when
right.
you have these amazing and talented artists that come through that might be the next Nora Jones, the next Michael Jackson, the next Elvis Presley, all these big names that you can be a superstar, but they have this mindset of entitlement or I am that good. I'm not coachable. I'm going to do it my way. Like I've cut ties with songwriters because they want me to indulge their opinions on my
Yeah.
songs, and I take them their advice, and we write kind of in a flowy thing, is how, like a flow state's what I like to call it. But then they bring a song to me, and they're like, "Hey, this is a song I'm working on. What do you think?" And I tell them like, "I don't like the way that hook sounds. Would you want to try this?" And they're like, "No, I want to leave it that way." I'm like, "You're one dimensional in your mindset,
Right.
like, and you can't take criticism because I think about it this way. Like, I've changed a lot of my songs up from the way I wrote
Right.
them because my producer says, "Hey, try this. It might sound better." So Dave Hagen's been my producer at Dark Horse, 13-time Grammy-winning producer. I think he knows his shit.
Right.
It's like, so if someone, if your doctor of 30 years comes in and says, "Hey, your knees are messed up because you're eating too much sugar. If you cut the sugar back, your knees will stop hurting." And you're like, "No, I think I'm gonna try eating more meat." Like,
Yeah.
why are you going to see this person who obviously has more knowledge than you? It's like,
It's and that sums up kind of to wrap it up. I mean, that sums up music to me. There are I always tell people this. There are a lot of artists that I don't enjoy that I don't necessarily like. But here's the thing. Taylor Swift, number one. I'm not a Taylor Swift fan. There's nothing she does that I really like or appreciate.
I'll say
But
this real quick. One thing I love about Taylor Swift, her business model.
well, that's exactly what I was getting to. I don't enjoy Taylor Swift. I don't like Taylor Swift. But I didn't make $1 billion last year. I didn't sell out stadiums. I didn't have a best-selling record. So you know what? Kudos to Taylor Swift. Congratulations. You are there. I'm not. I'll sit back here and simply
Yep.
say, not a fan of the music, but hey, you do you, and
Yeah.
congratulations in
I mean,
being massively successful.
like me as an artist, like I have to admire what she's accomplished
Right.
as an artist. Like I'm with you though. Like I'm more of a fan of like old Taylor Swift, like original, what I call the country version of Taylor Swift. When she first came out, was pretty poppy and people, pretty popular. Just like I still like the old Britney Spears stuff. It's like from the early
I'm
2000s.
not a
But the thing
huge
is like she's elevated herself, and
right.
again, because of her popularity, she does get more scrutinized than probably any other artist because
Right.
you are at the top. I mean, so it's when you get to the top of the hill and there's nowhere else to climb, everyone is below you. And everyone
I
below
mean,
you is looking up. So it's like,
it's to me, it's a matter of I don't have to like or enjoy your music, but I will show you respect for what you've done. I'm not a Rolling Stones fan, truthfully, but 60 years as a band is 60 years as a band.
yeah.
So you
And
get
still
massive
sell,
respect
and
for
still
me.
selling out venues. It's like,
You know what I'm saying? I haven't done it, so I'm not going to talk bad about you. I will show you respect. Again, I'm not an Eminem fan, but again, millions of records is millions of records. I haven't sold them, so I'll sit back here and shut up and just say, "Hey, it's not for me. I would listen to this instead." Um,
yeah,
you know, it's music is one of them things where there's so much of it that even if you don't enjoy something, there's something else you can enjoy.
correct.
For me, not a big fan of Taylor Swift, but I'll listen to Jody Messina. I'll listen to uh, Pam Tillis. I'll listen to, there's so many other artists that you can love and enjoy that to me it's unnecessary to talk bad about somebody. And when I hear people talk bad about an artist, it's kind of like, okay, why don't you just listen to something else? Well, what do you
Yeah,
mean? Taylor Swift sucks. Okay, maybe she does to you, but why express that? Why instead of being negative, why don't you just say, well, I don't like Taylor Swift, but I really like Lainey Wilson. Okay, well, cool. Then let's talk about Lainey Wilson because you're not getting anywhere being negative about someone
Correct.
when you can put positivity out there, man. It's so easy. It took me a really long time to learn that it's much harder to hate someone than it is to love someone.
Yep.
And that's a hard lesson, man. When you finally realize all the energy that you've wasted hating someone, disliking someone, or trying to keep that negative energy, it it really is kind of freeing to be
Just let it
free of
go.
that, you know. Thank you so much for coming on here, Pepper.
Bro,
I really do love this record. Like I said, it's grown on me more and more and more as I've listened to it. Um, stuff that I've heard over repeated listenings that I didn't hear the first couple of times when I made the list. Um, I look forward to more songs and hopefully if sometime in the future, if you get up near Michigan somewhere that seeing a
yeah,
live performance and
that'd be kind of cool. Hey, also too, I do want to say since we're promoting the second place song now, the next song on the list, which I hope you can take a look at the song a little bit more. The song on the album called "Life with You," probably my
yes,
personal favorite song on the whole album because when my wife and I first started dating, we were hanging out one night just watching Netflix and chilling. And she just kind of looks up at me with the sweetest little look, and she's like, "You know, I just love doing life with you." And I like immediately I jump up,
yeah,
I wrote it down on a piece of paper. I was like, "That's a song." And she's like, "What do you mean?" I'm like, "That's a song right there. Like that's a song title."
yes,
I wrote the song, and there's so many elements of our life in that song. So it's kind of personal, but then it's also very relatable for any young love that's out there
yeah.
or anybody. It's just it's a fun. And again, it's got some feel good vibes, but that's gonna be probably the one we push next month. Hadn't figured out what a. If you got some suggestions for a third song for March,
You know,
pretty
I
sure life.
I've got a song that is it's a very personal song to me, and it kind of around very much the same way. I'm not a songwriter per se. I don't play an instrument, so it's sort of this weird melody in my head. I have the lyrics, but there's really no music per se to it. But it came about sort of the same way. My grandfather, 97 years old, still runs his farm every day. Toughest man you'll ever meet. I always make the joke he's made out of John Wayne leather. Um, and all the stuff that I learned from him over the years. I mean, I am the man I am today because of my grandfather. And me and my cousin were sitting around one day and we were talking about my grandfather. And he said, "Man," he said, "you don't even realize how much I've learned at that old man's table." And just immediately, like, that's a song I have to write about all the lessons, all the life lessons we learned sitting at his kitchen table, listening to him talk about working at General Motors, talk about farming, talking about gardening, talking about being married for 60 plus years before my grandma died, all the life lessons. I was like, that's a country song. And I wanted to be like a traditional type of song because he's a huge fan of Hank Snow and Farron Young and Hank Sr. So I wanted to be that sort of traditional. But at the same time, I'm not a songwriter. Like I don't play an instrument. I got guitars that I'm trying to learn to play, but it's also that poignant to me because he's 97. He's not going to be here that much longer.
Well,
So,
I tell you what, brother. Send me the lyrics if you trust me, and I'll see what I can do with it.
yeah, like I've never really met anyone that I liked or trusted enough to try to sit down with them and say, "Hey, would you be willing to sit with a complete amateur?" Because I love country, but I know very little about the
So
songwriting side
the
of it.
only thing
Like
the
I
only
could,
thing that I ask is you take the 10 minutes it will take you to go on BMI and get your
yeah,
registered number, so
yeah.
that when we finish the song, we can put it out there, and
Yeah,
you'll be
and
notified.
that's another reason that I've never showed it to anybody really because I also realize that this is an industry where if I show these lyrics to a bunch of people, somebody's going to be like, "Hey, I'm going to record that, and there ain't nothing you can do about it other than try to say you wrote it first, and then it's a
Yeah.
legal battle, and
Well,
depending
here's
on
the
who
thing
has the
too.
better
Is like
lawyer."
again, I'm stand up too. So like when I write with
Well,
somebody,
yeah,
like I make sure that like, oh, you're not on BMI, you're not on ASCAP. Like we need to get you on that because it takes 10
yeah,
minutes to get you set up.
yeah.
It doesn't. It costs like $29. It's $30, and like
And
I'd
like you
even pay
said,
for that.
it's and like you said, put it in writing. It's
It
not
makes
that hard to.
I think from a standpoint of professionalism, it helps other people that may not really know me realize that I don't want to take nobody's song.
Right,
Like I have some friends of mine. Like there's a song that she sent me that they recorded as a demo, and it's such a good song. The title of the song is called Stumbled into Paradise, and
nice.
it's really beautiful. And like it has this like it could be like a wedding song kind of feel to it. It's just so pretty. But for me, she's like, you should cover this song and like you should record it and yada. And I'm like, well, let me tell you where I'm at. I'm like, I think it needs a bridge. I think it needs more lines. So she gives me the
Right.
song and I add some stuff to it. And it's in the back. She's like, well, we really don't want to change it. We don't want to add another writer to it. And I'm like, you want me to spend a couple $1,000s to go record this song, but you want me to record it the way that you have it. But that doesn't fit my style.
Right.
And I'm like, so I tell her, I'm like, so until y'all were okay with adding me as a writer,
Right.
or because if I add lyrics to it and put a bridge to it, that makes me a writer. It
Right.
makes me
Exactly.
a contributor to the song. Even
Exactly.
I told her that even if we figure out that my percentage is only 10% of the value of that song, which we can do. Like when you put it in there, you can agree on terms and say, okay, songs are divided online. Most people don't know this. Like in a 200 percentile, it's weird. They
Right.
use 200 as a number. So like I could literally have 50 and they could have 150 to split, so 75 apiece, basically. So that gives me like not even a third of it, you know? And I've explained to her, I'm like, but to ask someone to spend their money to record a song that could
Yeah.
take off and be something that makes you a bunch of money and not want to give them part of it, to me
Yeah.
is asinine. That'd be like me
Yeah.
going to Jason Aldean and say, Jason Aldean, he said, oh man, I love your song Second Place, but I'd really like to change a couple lyrics and add me as a songwriter.
Right.
Okay. I'm not like, no, Jason, I don't want your name on it. Like
Right.
just, he's like, okay, well,
Yeah.
then I don't want to. But that could have been like a number one for 10 weeks in a row for Jason Aldean,
Yeah.
which would make $1 million and only giving him, 30% of
Yeah.
it. It's like,
Yeah. I guarantee you Colt Ford was not saying no when Jason come for, you know, a
so here's
joke.
the thing. Like, so I've known Colt for a long time. It's funny. I'll have to send you a picture. He came to Oxford Performing Arts Center down in Oxford when I was living there and was playing a show. It's about 2,500 seat capacity. And my wife at the time, my ex-wife, I told her stories about being, knowing Colt Ford since he was,
Yeah.
a long time from Georgia, whole 9 yards.
Yeah.
And we're at the show. We got good seats. And I was like, I made a comment about, like, I'm going to walk down there and give him a fist bump on stage because I hadn't seen him in a while. And he's on stage. The
Right.
stage is like 5 feet tall.
Yeah.
And I literally get up in the middle of the show and walk down the aisle. And I get about 10 feet from him. Like, his face lights up. Like, dude, like, he's in between songs. He walks up, he sits down on the stage, gives me a hug in front of 2,500
Yeah.
people. And I think the people that were there thought this was like invitation. So a line formed behind me. Now, let me tell you how cool
That's
of a dude
great.
he is. He sat there and sang
Yeah.
5 songs, never stood up, and took pictures with people while performing.
Yeah. He
And then he
really
got up
is.
and he's like, man, he's like, that's got to be a first. And he's like, I hadn't sat down and sang a song in 10 years. He's like, you guys are awesome. He's like, that just made my night. Like being able to actually have that connection with the
Yeah.
audience while performing. And he sent me a message on Facebook afterwards. He's like, brother, said, did you mean to do that? I was like, no. I said, I was just trying to tell my wife I know you just want to get the fist bump. He's like, man, so don't ever do that again.
Yeah, he really is one of the most genuine, awesome
But
guys.
you're
I
right. I mean, when Jason heard his song and wanted to record it, like it was one of those things where I don't know how Jason heard it. I forget how Cole told the story, but it was like one of those. Like I think Cole had already been released for like a year, like, and
Mhm.
it wasn't doing nothing. Like it may have had like 10,000 plays on Spotify. It was like he ain't made a
Right.
dime off of it. I mean, maybe couple $100.
Right.
And someone that maybe Jason Aldean's producer or his publisher heard the song and was like, "Hey, I think you could do this song." So he sent it to Jason, and Jason's like, "Oh man, I love that." But it's like we want to add like a little more of that country hip hop in there, and get that
Yeah.
little that beat. And they did it. He approached Cole and was like, "Hey, we want to do this." And Jason changed 2 lines in the song. There's like There's like 5 new words in the song,
Right.
but he wanted to be added as a co-write. Jason's percentage on that song is 5% as a co-write. But a lot of artists want to just have their name in that line where it says
Mhm.
written by so and so. Even if their
Right.
name is last on that list, like even if it says written by Colt Ford, Pepper Brooks, Randy
Right.
Travis, and Jason Aldean, like they just want to have
Yeah.
they have that mindset of like they want their
Yeah.
name attached to it some way. And that's what I try to explain to my friends. I'm like, this is a business in the story. And
Yeah.
like, if I record this song as a straight cover for y'all and it sells 20 million copies, y'all make $15 million and I'll make one.
Yeah.
And I'm like, for y'all doing nothing but just writing some good lyrics. I'm like, not that I don't want y'all to get paid, and I don't mind y'all getting paid more than me. But if I'm going to
Yeah.
be the one that this song and makes it famous, like, I need to be compensated.
Right.
You
Yeah.
know,
When I heard Colt's first CD, it was another one of the moments where it was just like this is my life. Like literally growing up on a dirt road, but eventually ending up in the city, being a fan of hip hop. And
I know you love trashing my trailer song.
that was the first song I ever heard.
That song
And
is so good.
um it was just that most of the production credits that I have as a producer are with hip hop artists. Because I have a bunch of friends that are rappers, so I've always tinkered with that. When I heard Colt's record, I was like, this is just my life. This is the country boy that works around rappers mostly coming together. And
Yeah,
I got his logo tattooed, and he played at the machine shop in Flint, and we went amazing show, and he was meeting people afterwards, and I walked up to the table and I stuck my arm out so he could see the tattoo, and he's looking back, and he was like, he's like, son, that might be the coolest damn thing I've ever seen in my life. And he just immediately like, he's motioning everyone over, and it took a ton of pictures. And he sat and talked with us for like an hour,
yeah.
just about life
Yeah,
and
he's
um,
genuine. Man. That's what I tell my
yeah,
wife all the time. Like, I don't. I know once I get to a level where if I'm playing an arena of 30,000 people, I can't stick around and shake everybody's hand. It's
yeah,
impossible. That'd take all
right,
night. But I can definitely, for anyone who pays the extra money for a backstage pass or for a
right,
meet and greet, you know, actually spend some time talking to them. Like, not just rush them through. Like, I had an opportunity to meet Stapleton here recently, and I love him as an artist. He's a great artist.
oh
He's
God,
just very, with what we did. I know he was doing it for charity, but it was like he was kind of unpersonable. And I
he's
understand, like,
another one.
well, the thing is like he has people outside of his bus that's waiting in the rain for an hour
Yeah,
just to shake his hand, because they're such a fan of his. And like it almost seems like, get in, get out, get in, get out. Like, I don't have time for you. And
yeah,
it kind of made me feel bad because I saw that, but then there was this one lady in front of us who had a story that she was telling about how his music saved her life. Like, she was wanting to
right,
commit suicide and heard one of his songs, which give her strength. And so he was actually, to see him actually be moved by that, I was like, okay, well, maybe my judgment of him was too harsh at first. But I see it happen like with people like Taylor Swift. Like, now she's so big and popular, like she has to sneak into her own concerts.
yeah.
Like,
Jelly's getting that way to where he's, it's getting impossible for him to even go out to dinner now without people like,
yeah,
you
and
know.
I told my wife, I said, the part that I don't like to see these artists do is, one, when they get to that level, they use that to their advantage,
Yeah,
where they get things that they would never have gotten if they weren't a superstar.
right.
Whether it be females, whether it be reservation at restaurants, kicking people out so you have a seat. Like,
Yeah.
I understand being the discretion of it, but you need to understand that if you are a public figure like that and you are popular,
You
that if
signed
you're
up
going to
for it.
go out and if you're going to go out in public, you need to expect there's going to be some people that want to take your picture,
Yeah. You
that
signed
want to
up
run up,
for it.
just touch the sleeve of your shirt. Like,
Yeah.
to say they touched you. Like, say they have a story, go back and tell their friends, I touched his jacket. Like, and you have to understand that with that level of spotlight comes a responsibility to those people. Like, you don't want to discourage them from having that hope of a hero,
Yeah.
but at the same time, you do have to live your own life. So it's
Yeah.
like, that's why, like, for me, I think my favorite star in all of Hollywood, you name it, is Keanu Reeves because of that.
Yes.
Because
Oh
he
my
is
God,
such
was
a
he?
humble person, and he doesn't try. You don't ever see him go to an award show in a neon green suit. He don't pull up in a Bentley. I mean, it's like he just dresses the way he dresses, and he
I,
goes and shops at Home Goods at Whole Foods by himself.
I got I have a Keanu story. Um 1992, we played the Milwaukee Metal Fest, and Deicide was the headliner. There was a mystery band, and then King Diamond played before that, and we were somewhere in the middle. And this whole show, they were like, "We're not telling you who the mystery guest is. We're not telling you who the mystery guest is." Well, whoever it is they're in trouble because Deicide are they're horrible human beings, and their fans are even worse. So any band that has to open for Deicide is just automatically hated. Like their fans are just terrible. So for this whole show, for this festival, we're waiting to see who the mystery guest is. King Diamond goes off stage, the lights come down, they start moving stuff around. Ricky Rockman walks out there, and immediately the crowd erupts, calling him a poser and all of these horrible things because he's the hair metal guy and it's a death metal festival. So he's like, I'm here to introduce the my very good friends. This is their first show, blah, blah, blah. Keanu Reeves and Dog Star. Curtain comes up, and the fucking audience just starts throwing shit. They're throwing chunks of dirt. They're throwing beer bottles. They're throwing chairs. And Keanu is just like, he's trying to play bass, but he's like, they played for 41 seconds and ran for their lives.
Wow.
I don't know. Keanu's band, they're not bad, but they sound like Nirvana. They had
Yeah.
absolutely no business being booked at a death metal festival, let alone opening for the worst band in society. Like Deicide are, I will mince no words. They are terrible human beings. They're petty, egomaniacal pricks, every single one of them. I've said it before and I'll say it till the day I die. I don't like them. They're terrible human beings. They had no business in that spot. And I feel so bad for Keanu that he got that treatment. They literally ended up not even doing the tour after that. And he came back like years later to kind of restart and redo the thing with
Yeah.
Dogstar. Um, but I agree with you. Awesome human being. I love his charity work and everything that he does. And he does it without any fanfare. He does it without
Yeah, and
even
the thing
wanting to
is,
be known.
because the thing I think's great is like, he decided it was around the time I think he was shooting Speed. And this is
Right.
before the Matrix, before he really got like even super
Hmm.
popular. But he was already like kind of a semi superstar anyway. This is like post Bill and Ted. And someone said like, why don't you just be you in public? Like quit trying to be somebody else. Quit trying to be
Right.
a character. Just be yourself. So he started just being himself. And then when Matrix came along, and of course Matrix blew up, made him even way more popular than he ever
Yeah.
was. And a whole cult following behind that whole story and everything. He stayed true to it and just was like, okay, like I'm going to be this person who is so approachable that no one wants to approach me.
Right.
That's kind of, and like he's talked about that on talk shows about just being so normal that it takes the luster of like trying to catch him doing something.
Yeah.
Like we're not trying to be around Keanu because he's boring. He's not boring. He's an average. He's just a regular person. He's not trying to be out
Yeah.
there being flashy like Floyd Mayweather and walking
Yeah.
around with security people and all that. Like he's just who he is. And the fact that he is so approachable and like he doesn't do any of the stuff that he does to get attention.
Right.
Like he doesn't have someone following him, like posting videos of him eating with homeless
Right.
people. Other people are doing this on his
Yeah.
behalf.
Yeah.
And he just kind of like blows it off like he's like, well, they're human beings. So like they're
Yeah.
just like us. They're just not rich. They're homeless. They don't have a
Yeah.
house to live. It's like that mindset is why he's where
Yeah.
he is. And while he'll be remembered long after he's gone as being a legend at being at
Yeah.
doing life, not just an actor, but a legend at doing life.
Yeah.
And
I'll
like
say
I told my wife,
you
I said, I really hope that I never get so big that I can't,
Right.
high five a teenage boy or, whatever, and I want to look for opportunities when I get to that level of maybe discovering artists that no one's heard of. Like
Yeah.
I think maybe my ultimate goal at some point will be to have my own label where I bring in people that you've never heard of this guy before, but I heard him
Right.
and I think he's great and he's going to be great because he's a good
That's
human.
that's exactly what I want to do. That's my goal is to, you know, having worked with Jelly way back when, worked with Cole way back when, and hopefully 10 years from now, I can say, hey, I interviewed this guy. Now he's won a Grammy and I did it. I interviewed him before he ever had a big hit song or a Grammy, whatever. But I want to do that. Like, I want to discover new artists and kind of help them along. And um, we just saw Chris Jansen a couple weeks ago on the Bret Michaels tour, and he's another one. He brought his son out on stage to sing with him, and it was such a dad moment, like seeing his 10-year-old son come out on stage with him, and
Yeah,
the pride on Chris's face watching his son perform with him. I was like, God, you can't buy moments like that, man. Like it's just, it's one of them things that I think he realized, and maybe other people realized it's very, very few people ever get that opportunity to be
yeah,
in that moment in time, Um, and again, going back to second place, it's sort of like that tail end of that, of seeing Chris be able to bring his son out and perform with him, and the smile on his face is really just it makes you think like, damn, that's a really
yeah,
touching, poignant moment. Um,
yeah.
but we're gonna wrap this up. I
All
want
right,
to
cool.
thank Pepper for coming on here. As always, you know how we end this. Be well, treat each other with kindness. Remember, no matter what you're going through, there are people who will listen, especially music, because music heals.